And Jim, that was the second of the Liszt Paganini etudes in E-flat. We have heard now Earl Wild and the American pianist, both American, Augustin Onyevis. The third Paganini Liszt etude is the most famous by far, and it's from La Campanella, a tune Paganini used to great effect throughout his career and in his what was once called the third violin concerto. However, they keep discovering new violin concertos by this man, and it's up to 6. This phantom of the violin, this greatest wizard that ever played the fiddle. And it's now numbered newly, which is now 2. So let's hear, before we hear the Liszt Paganini, from the Violin Concerto number 2, the La Campanella movement. And that was the La Campanella movement from Paganini's now second violin concerto. It used to be the third. And this is from a full package of all 6 violin concertos. The violinist in a somewhat tame performance, Salvatore Accardo, the London Philharmonic Orchestra, Charles Dutoit. Let's now get to the piano version of La Campanella. Liszt, earlier in his career, made a big fantasy on this tune and later discovered it was too long, and he honed it down to this wonderful work that we now know, hackneyed as it is. It speaks well of the work that it's still played daily in the world. And we're adding our contribution now.
This is our daily version.
This is our daily version. Somewhere in the world, La Campanella is being practiced. That's a wonderful concept. At this moment, you can bet on it, or someone is trying to play it at least. In this performance, we have the marvelous French pianist, Jean-Marie Daré.
So for whoever's practicing, take a break and listen.
Okay, good. And that was Jean-Marie Deret, French virtuosa, in the La Campanella. Now this is the only of the 6 Paganini Liszt etudes that is not based on the caprices, but on the violin concerto. We have another performance, and frankly, Jim, I don't remember who I just brought out.
Gunnar
Johansson, yes,
Johansson.
who's new to our library here, and a wonderful Liszt pianist. Let's hear his performance. entirely my fault. Of course, that was not La Campanella. I told Jim to put Band 2 on. He did, and it was the E-flat etude, and I didn't want to stop it because instantly I heard that this is very elegant pianism and full of delicacy. There was some humor, and it's actually better than the Agnevas or the Earl Wild.
That was beautiful. I really enjoyed listening to that, especially the stories you told me about the man.
Yeah. Well, he has recorded all of Bach's piano music, and all of Liszt's, and all of Busoni, and this must be 100 recordings, and you have to buy them from the artist himself. Blue Mountain, Wisconsin. Blue Mounds, Wisconsin.
He doesn't deliver, right?
Yeah, no. And he had big Time magazine coverage when Peter Serkin, I think, was to play the Beethoven's own transcription of his violin concerto for piano. And he got ill. Perhaps Serkin knew him, called him, and he hopped a plane, got the score, learned it on the plane, memorized it, and played it with the New York Philharmonic, and of course made a sensation. But other than that, his career has been undercover. And I do know that he has a devoted band of disciples.
It's the kind of story that you think happened way back when and doesn't happen now, and it does. It's just amazing.
Marvelous things can happen anytime. Well, I have to read this. Well, Gunnar Johansson, please come to New York and play. And that was his performance of La Campanella, and he's recorded all 6 grand etudes after Paganini. Our next performance is from Paganini to Liszt to Busoni, who simplified some of Liszt's thorny writing in this work and perhaps enhanced it. We have a recording, and I'm usually against piano rolls, but this one has always impressed me as something pretty close, and I'd like you to hear the legendary Joseph Levine in La Campanella.
That was unbelievable.
Yes, fantastic, just fantastic. Joseph Levine. And that was one of his specialties, La Campanella. And that's the only one of the 6 Paganini Liszt etudes that did not use one of the caprices. And very shortly we'll come back to the 4th Paganini Liszt etude, and we'll hear it in its original violin caprice first.
Unbelievable to think that's a piano roll, too, as you said.
It's the best by far I've ever heard. The next caprice is in the Paganini number 1. It's the 4th of Liszt's studies on them, and Louis Kentner writes, study number 4 in E major is an outstanding example of self-limitation on Liszt's part. Instead of a florid transcription, he does no more than virtually transfer the piece, as Paganini left it, to the keyboard, using only one stave, leaving it to the player to produce a convincing imitation of the violin's spiccato up and down arpeggios. Let's have a performance of, first, before we hear the piano piece, the first caprice of Paganini and the artist Victor Pikazin. The Soviet violinist Victor Pikazin in the first Paganini caprice. Let's hear another violinist do that. And the violinist is Itzhak Perlman. He writes, though, on this album that he would like to dedicate this album to the memory of my dear friend and colleague Michael Rabin. In preparing for the recording, his influence was a constant source of inspiration for me. Itzhak Perlman in the first caprice of Paganini. Itzhak Perlman in quite a performance of the first Caprice. What speed. Quite dashing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You see what you mean by a difference.
Yes, only through listening, by comparison, can we find the differences. And those differences, of course, the audience will make up their own minds. It's not easy today to buy a recording, you know. So many. And it's almost like a blind article. We read a review and so-and-so says, that's great, and another one says, this is terrible. And you can't win. I think it has to come from you eventually, but it's not easy in the world of recorded music to build up the necessary connoisseurship, because we don't have a chance any longer in record stores to leisurely pick. We go in and we better come out quickly. And of course there's so much too now.
I was thinking of that. You don't have the chance to really compare anymore, except if you're going to buy record A by artist so-and-so and then go and buy record B by another artist, but then you're stuck with maybe something you don't want.
Yes, so we have a few critics who hold immense power. This is quite unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah. Let's hear the Liszt version where he transfers it. It's very beautiful to look at it on the piano, on the page itself, because Liszt only uses one stave to notate it, really like a violin. Okay, the pianist is Nieves. And that was a pianist born in 1934 in this city, Augustin Nieves. Let's hear Gunnar Johansson. Splendid and invigorating, and Gunnar Johansson concludes the musical offering for today. On our next program, we'll continue with the Paganini Liszt Etudes, and join me tonight if you can when we explore the Polonaises of Chopin at 9:05. Jim, thank you very much.
May I thank you, David? Really, it's been a lot of fun because it's been sitting here, although working the program with you, roughly for the first time. It's been enlightening to sit down and listen to comparisons in this way and have nothing else in your mind but to try to see the differences. Enjoyable, really.
Thank you. And you're not tired?
Not at all.
Okay.